Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your hosts, Mike Trez and Mike Cadone.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spot on Sports, New York's premier sports talk show, where we talk New York sports, all New York sports, and nothing but New York sports. My name is Mike Trez, the great Michael Anthony, sailing the ship for us tonight. And we've got plenty of training camp stuff tonight, plenty of Mets stuff with Chris Caputo later on, plenty of Yankee stuff with Declan Krogman, all that and more. Before we do any of it, let me tell you, folks, I had to track this guy down halfway around the world. I had to drag him back here by the collar, but I still love him anyway. My buddy, my co-host, my partner, the coach, Mike Cadone.
Trez, it's great to be back. Yes, I was in Aruba taking a little break, but I can tell you, no matter where I went, on the beaches, in the hotels, the casinos, when I picked up my rental car, everybody kept saying, when is Spot on Sports coming back? When are you having another show? And I told them, just wait. Thursday, August 5th. Here we are. I feel like Ric Flair. Woo! I'm ready to go.
And for you folks out there, we want you to comment us tonight. We want you to like us on Facebook. We want you to share.
New formats.
I was going to get to that, but I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. We're now on Spotify. We're now on Apple Podcasts. Thank you to the great Michael Anthony for hooking that up for us. And the other thing we have to mention, folks, is that we are going to be looking for sponsors going forward. So if you're a small business owner and you want to reach a sports-minded audience that loves New York sports, Met fans, Yankee fans, Islander fans, Knicks fans, Net fans, this is the place to do it. We want your sponsorship moving forward, and tonight we've got a great show for you. So much to dig into, Mike.
Yeah, this time of year is really exciting because, meanwhile, the baseball races are heating up. We are done with a little bit. Olympics is out there, but that's not really our wheelhouse. But as you can see, we got our Giants and Jets representatives here tonight. At the beginning of any training camp season, whatever it is, but especially football, there's just something, even the casual football fan just gets really jazzed up at this time of the year because everybody's 0-0. Hopefully, although we'll talk about everyone's healthy at this point. Most of the traction has kind of gone on free agency and whatever else, but it's just a great time of year because it's the dog days of summer, but you can think about the cool, crisp fall air, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. It's not that far off.
Yeah, it's great. And obviously the baseball pennant races are front and center here in New York for the Yankees, for the Mets. We're going to start with the Yankees tonight. To help us do that is our Yankees reporter. He's here on Zoom with us tonight, Declan Krogman. Declan, how are you?
Thanks for having me, guys. Welcome
Good to
back.
see you, Deck.
Yeah, look at this. Mike's got a tan coming back from Aruba.
Well, listen,
Fired up.
I appreciate that. And just before we start, I see some familiar faces out there who are tuning in. Thank you. So if you do see this amazing tan that I have, don't worry. It's still Mike Cadone. I appreciate it. You might not have seen me with this kind of color, but here we go. It's Yankee talk with Declan.
5 out of the last 6, Declan. 7 out of 9. They've won 7 out of their last 8 series. This Yankee season has kind of been like Godfather 3. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Another day, another case of COVID. This time it's Gary Sanchez to add to the COVID list along with Montgomery and Cole. What's the latest on these guys?
So Cole, as we know, missed his start. They called up Luis Gil in his place, who was phenomenal. Went 6 scoreless against Baltimore. Montgomery, hanging out in the same clubhouse, same rotation, went down with him. And now we see the battery mate Gary Sanchez follow suit and get COVID as well. So hopefully they'll be back soon. Gary, we know, just came in tonight. His diagnosis, that is. But hopefully we can get 2 pitchers back that are really going to be needed if this team's going to make a push at the wild card race.
Let's go back to the trading deadline, Declan. I
Let's.
thought it was kind of urgent that the Yanks get a little help offensively, that they balance out their lineup, as you and I have basically every Yankee fan has talked about for a while now. They got Gallo, which I thought was nice. Hasn't really paid dividends yet. But more importantly, they got a guy who's an absolutely perfect fit on this team, Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, I mean, those are two. I'll stand by my opinion that those are two really good deals by Cashman at the deadline. I was more excited for Rizzo just because I didn't expect it. I mean, we saw Rizzo's name being inevitably mentioned in trade talks when they the fire sale that went down in Chicago, but I never thought he was coming to the Yankees. But it's nice to see him come to the Yankees. He started off 4 for 5, homered in his first hit as a Yankee was a homer. He got his first home run at Yankee Stadium last night. He keeps it coming. He's playing great. My comparison, he really reminds me of a left-handed DJ LeMahieu when he's hot. This is a guy from 2014 to 2019. Don't be fooled by his 60-game year last year. That was underwhelming, and his somewhat below-average first half for Chicago this year. This is a guy from 2014 to 2019 was a consistent hitter, hitting 285, 290, would get you 25 home runs. And he's going to do that. He's going to do just that. He's got 17 home runs, I believe, this year, 16 or 17. And he's had 3 with the Yankees so far, 2 moonshots in Miami. So great deals at the deadline. I would like to get a pitcher, but the asking price for Berrios from Minnesota was way too high. We saw the Jays overpay for them. But Gallo, it's comes in. Now he's clean shaven, might have to do a little, a little damage control and get back to himself. He kind of fits the unfortunate dynamic of boom or bust in the Yankees lineup. Rizzo, however, does not. And I think that's why Yankee fans have been so excited about him so far.
Declan, I think that Anthony Rizzo fills a lot of holes, as you mentioned, for the Yankees, but he's someone I would think that the team would look to be signing, hopefully long-term, to fill a big void for them. He really is. He's a perfect Yankee going forward right now. I mean, he's been in big spots in Chicago. New York and Chicago do have a little bit of who's better, in terms of what is a better media market, who can handle that kind of pressure. But this is a guy who helped, break a curse in Chicago for a long time. Could you see the Yankees making a big push to sign him long term?
Yeah, if I were the Yankees, despite the fact that he's had a great 5-6 games so far, I would definitely make a push to sign him. The only thing that I see getting in their way potentially is that, and I spoke to a really prominent source within the MLB that says more than likely, and I'm going to drop a bombshell for you guys, more than likely, shout out my boy Andrew Kahn, Corey Seager or Trevor Story will be in the Bronx next year playing shortstop for the New York Yankees. So if that's the case, we could potentially see them move on from Rizzo. It might be a little early to be talking that, but naturally you trade a guy for rental. You always want to see, hey, if they don't win the World Series, it'd be nice to bring him back. Rizzo's a guy you want to bring back. He's great for the team, great player, completely changes the dynamic of the offense, left-handed bat that's really made for the stadium. And he's not even a huge power guy, but this stadium could really turn him into just that. But I would love to see them re-sign him. I think that they will, but there's going to be a lot of moving parts this offseason with the New York Yankees, whether it's front office, players, all kinds of personnel. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there.
And even though I like Luke Voigt, Declan, it seems clear he's going to be the odd man out when he does come back. But the bigger worry for me, at least immediately, when Gio comes back, it also seems like my man Rougned Odor, who I like a lot, is also going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, and I think that's not going to be the worst of the Yankees' problems. The worst of the Yankees' problems was when your boy was hitting third when they were trotting out a AAA team for a couple of weeks there. During the whole other COVID crisis after the All-Star game. But I think having Odor as a great bench player, I think at this point in his career, that's what he is. As exciting as he could be, he gets some clutch doubles. We saw it in Boston and Fenway. We saw it against the Royals at the game I was at back in late June. He's a clutch hitter. He's going to be a nice bench piece to have, especially for a team that's shooting for a wild card berth. And listen, I hate to say it, but let's just keep it real, especially with New York teams the last couple of years. Injuries are going to happen, and players are going to find themselves at bats somehow, some way. So I wouldn't bet against Rougned Odor getting his at bats, getting the occasional start when even when Gio comes back. DJ, they seem to move him around. He's a little sluggish right now. He had that hamstring, or was it a bicep injury that they're kind of working him back from, as you see Odor going to third and DJ staying on the right side of the infield. So I wouldn't worry too much about Odor, but he is hitting 220, 230. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have him as a lefty bat off the bench.
And with Montgomery and Cole both on the shelf right now, Luis Gil, who you mentioned, pitched the other night. It looks like Nestor Cortez is back in the rotation. Jamison Tyone, who, Mike and I have been talking about.
One pitcher of the month.
March, what do you see the rest of the rotation looking like in the interim until we can get those two guys back on the mound?
Right. Well, like you guys mentioned, your boy Jamison Tyone, AL pitcher of the month. So that's huge for the month of July. To get him back, really, I mean, who expected that after he had like an ERA of 5.6 the first 2 months of the season? For him to get those honors for the month of July is nothing short of a miracle. He's really been on his game. Now, I would have loved for the Yankees to pick up, and we kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking trade deadline, I would have loved for the Yankees to pick up a pitcher like Jose Berrios. Max Scherzer would have been insane, but let's just be honest. Without giving up Dominguez, they don't have the farm for that. And they gave up a lot of prospects to get Gallo and Rizzo as it is. Excuse me, not Rizzo, but more so Gallo. They gave up 4, I believe, or 4 to 6. So I think in the interim with Montgomery on the shelf, Cole on the shelf, won't see them gone too much longer. But, I mean, they sent Gil down. I always want to say Gil because it's spelled that way, but it is Gil. They sent him down. Maybe they'll bring him back up. I'd like to see them bring him back up. He was excellent against the Orioles. And they'll have a couple guys do some spot starts. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bullpen game mixed in there either.
I do want to mention we have a wonderful crew here tonight watching, so many friends and family members and just sports fanatics. Feel free to add your comments, add your questions. This is part of the deal as well. We're monitoring, and we'd love to have anything that you guys out there might want to be answered or just comments. We'll certainly mention you. Declan, just one last thing I wanted to say was it's almost, we'll look offensively here at the Yankees. It's almost offensively like this team is so deep at the moment that they're offensively, at least, that they're built for the playoffs. They're where you can plug and match and, series here, you're activating people, whatever else you need a runner. So I would think as a Yankee fan or a Yankee insider, as you are, that you got to be pretty happy if they can get there, if the pitching can hold, that they're going to have, the bats and the speed and everything in place, at least offensively.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right there, Mike. I like what they did at the deadline to get their bats in order, but as far as I've said it on the show before, I've said it many times, and I'm not breaking any news here. Playoffs is all about pitching. And when you have a bullpen that has blown more leads than anyone else in baseball, they've gone into the ninth inning 7 times or 8 times up by multiple runs and blown that game. First of all, that's the difference of being in first place and third place right now.
Well, now you know what it's like to be a Met fan, but that's a different story for
a different
innings. We'll get there with Chris later
about
on.
20 minutes from now.
Yeah, exactly. But that's case in point. That team in 2015 with the Mets was great. Familia saved a bunch of games for them. He was excellent. But he had a couple blown saves in the regular season and the postseason, and that was unfortunately the downfall among a couple other things. But you're completely right. The Yankees bullpen is not where it needs to be, and their pitching is a little bit too inconsistent. If they can really fine-tune that down the stretch, this is a team that can compete with the wild card, whether it's in the Trop or Boston, we'll see.
Declan, I just want to get back to the rotation for a second because Kluber and Severino are two guys that could give us a big lift. I keep hearing Kluber not till September now, but I've been hearing more and more about Severino. What are you hearing about a timetable for Severino when he might be back on the mound?
Well, Severino's coming back really soon. He made a rehab start for Somerset, which is the AA affiliate for the Yankees in their first year. Somerset Patriots took over Trenton Thunder. So that's really important. And to get him back is huge. I mean, we wanted to get him back a couple weeks ago, and he slipped off the mound, had a problem with his leg, had a setback with an arm. It seems like we've kind of been getting a tease as to when Luis Severino's coming back. I mean, people forget, this is a guy who was the game 1 starter in the wild card against Minnesota, against the Oakland A's. Even those huge Astros series, he was your number 1 guy. He's the guy that they're going to rely on. He's the guy that they need to get him they're gonna need him down the stretch. And Kluber is gonna come back around September, like you mentioned. But I think Severino's coming back within the next few weeks. I mean, he's coming back soon, and he's going to come back hard.
We have a comment from my pal Lenny Fishman, who was saying that he can't believe that they sent Allen down. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was upset to see that too. Greg Allen was a really nice player. He's nice, I guess, fifth outfielder for the Yankees, who was really getting some good at bats and taking advantage of his opportunities. The one thing I'll say to our boy Lenny there is the reasoning behind this is, and I know it sucks at the onset, but the reasoning behind this is they wanted to send him down now before this September 1st, where they expand the rosters. They wanted to send him down now. This way, if they were to send him down in a week, literally a week later, they would have to waive him because Greg Allen's a veteran. He's 28 and he's out of options. So they wanted to make sure to keep him. Listen, would I have liked them to keep him on the roster? I mean, I hate to say it, but Brett Gardner has not been producing like Greg Allen, as much as we love him in the Bronx. But that was a business move. They'll have him back up in a week. Hurts in the interim, but I think the Yankees will make up for it.
Two offensive guys I've got to ask you about, Declan. The world's streakiest player, of course, is Giancarlo Stanton. His numbers are respectable, 254. He's got 17 homers. He's in the low 50s in RBIs. Do you see him getting hot again right now and giving the Yankees the type of lift that a guy like that can really provide for an offense for a sustained period of 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I do. And it's no secret that Stanton's not the player that Cashman traded for in the offseason in 2017, coming off the MVP, where he was playing the outfield too. I'd love to see him get in the outfield. But as far as his hitting goes, yes, he's very streaky. He's a great mistake hitter. If he hits his pitch, he's going to hit it a mile. Great fastball hitter. But if you get him that outside, if you throw him that outside breaking ball, or if you throw him a location that he's not looking, he's not going to punish you. And that's the unfortunate part of Stanton. And if you hit him sixth, if you hit him fifth, then I think your team's going to be all right. If you can have guys like DJ, Rizzo, Judge, and I mean Gallo, I'd like to see him get hot, but Gallo's got to be in front of him as well. But he down the stretch, he could be their guy. But like you said, he is very streaky, and as is Gleyber.
Yeah, that's the other guy I was going to ask you about. Gleyber now approaching the 250 mark again. You and I have talked about it several times already. Really still very low power numbers, half a dozen homers this season. Do you see him picking it up down the stretch and again contributing to this offense the way he needs to in order for the Yankees to be successful?
Yeah, I wish I could sit here and say that I was confident that Gleyber would rattle off 10 more homers to end the year. His batting average would go up to 260, 265. But I can't sit here and say that so confidently. Gleyber's a guy right now who is not as confident, ironically, in the batter's box as he normally is. I think him being at shortstop and not at second base is throwing off his whole game. I think that's going to be a problem for him as the season progresses and as we get closer to playoff time. So I'm not going to put all my money on Gleyber Torres. But if he's hitting the right center field gap, if he's driving in runners when they're in scoring position like he was against the Marlins and the Orioles, then the Yankees should be all right. But he's got to be consistent. Hopefully he can do that, but I'm not so confident that he can.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point with that, and I agree with you. I don't think Gleyber's a shortstop. I've never thought he was a shortstop, and I think it's hurting his offensive game. The one more guy I want to ask you about, Declan, and I can't believe, speaking of young guys who like to mouth off, I cannot believe I heard from this guy. Clint Frazier is ripping the Yankees? I mean, come on, Clint Frazier. I don't want to hear it from you. You were handed the starting left field job, and you weren't bad. You were abysmal for the whole first half of the year.
Yeah, he was hitting 185. Really just, listen, I'm a Clint Frazier fan, but I'm obsessed with what he can be. Right now, what he is he's super below average. Like you said, he's been abysmal this year. And sometimes he takes out into the field. After being a Gold Glove finalist in 2020 and the year before, almost, practically being a AAA player who can't play the field anymore. So hopefully Frazier can get his act together. I'm not sure why he's ripping the Yankees, but if he can just get healthy, again, another bench guy that can be all right down the stretch. But right now, and he could be activated and sent down. So that's the only worry I would have for him.
It's actually a question from our viewers once again, and I'll send this to both Mike Trez and to you, Declan. Overall, what are your thoughts? Lenny asks again on the handling of the bullpen by Aaron Boone. He's much maligned for that very often. It is something that can be second guessed quite a bit of your manager, whoever it is. But do you guys see that as a problem this year or going forward?
Yeah, I'm jealous that Lenny is in the pool right now. Lenny.
Well, he is the fit. He's the fish.
Let's go first, Declan. Go ahead.
I would say this. I would say that I don't love how he's managed this bullpen the whole bullpen situation this year. But how much of it is Boone's call and how much of it is an organizational thing, analytical, whatever? It's tough to tell. It is tough to say at this point. But as far as whoever's handling the bullpen right now, I don't love it. You have they had a stretch even to going back to the last game at the All-Star break when they blew the whole game against the Astros. I mean, you had Chapman who was not confident, but you could have brought him in a 5-run game, and they chose to go with Chad Green. Domingo Germán, who was like your number 5 starter. Make that make sense. It doesn't. And then they brought in Chad Green. This team has blown so many leads. It's on the players, but at a certain point, there's definitely got to be a correlation to what the manager has been doing, and the manager has not been doing much. So I don't love it.
In answer to your question, Coach, and to Lenny's question, here's what I'll say. The one time this year I got really, really aggravated with Boone was 4th of July. I was having a nice barbecue, couple cocktails. Oh, you can ask my wife how aggravated. I went full Paul O'Neill. As soon as they showed Chapman warming up in the bullpen, Mike, I went full Paul O'Neill. It's a good thing there's no water cooler in my house.
You texted me about that.
Yeah. Oh, you got those texts too? Unbelievable.
But other than that, I thought he's been good. I don't like Britton in the 8th inning. I never have. I'm a little concerned he keeps going to Britton in the 8th. I think Chapman is back where he needs to be. Chad Green, for whatever reason, doesn't seem like he can close, but he's usually good in the 7th and 8th. And Loizaga, I think, has been terrific. He had one bad outing, and other than that,
he's really overachieved.
Yeah, he's been great all season long.
Totally. And losing Sessa hurts. I don't know. I wish they didn't have to do that. It was a salary dump to get Gallo and Rizzo, but he was good this year as well.
You're right. Declan, thanks very much. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Well, let me ask you real quick before we let you go about Seattle this weekend. What do you expect out of that series?
Well, I feel like the Yankees, every time they go into Seattle, you expect them to sweep. They win the first 2 games, and they lose their rubber match on like Thursday afternoon. But it'll be a Sunday game. I expect 2 out of 3. I don't want to get too crazy and expect to sweep like I probably should. But Seattle's no slouch. It's not the Seattle of last year. This is a team that's also fighting for the wild card. Made some puzzling moves at the deadline, but fighting for the wild card nonetheless. So I would like to see a series win there. I expect a series win.
Great job. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks, Deck.
Sounds good. Thanks. Stay tan, Mike.
All right, buddy.
All right, Mike, before we jump into more baseball a little bit later on with Chris and cover the Mets, I wanted to talk to you about Giant and Jet Camp, as you mentioned. Now is the time of the year guys like you and me start to get excited about football training camps, excited to welcome back the NFL. Jets, obviously the big story early on involved Zach Wilson and the contract holdout. It seems like they got that squared away pretty quickly. Wilson's in camp now and seems to be making good progress.
He is, but interesting little point here today, which we were going to bring up. I was really amazed, and nothing that the Jets does really amazes me anymore, but I'm sure some of our other fans here will say this as well, that the Jets went into the beginning of training camp without signing an established veteran quarterback. They went out today. They signed Josh Johnson, who was, kicked around the league pretty much everywhere. He was
the
on
Giants for a little while.
On the Giants for a little bit. He was a practice squad member last year with the 49ers, so he is familiar with the systems that the Jets are going to be running this year. Robert Saleh felt very comfortable bringing him in, but not exactly someone who, if a young guy either needs a break or anything other than a tutor, you're going to feel comfortable putting him under center. So that to me was the biggest concern going into Jet camp. Obviously, they have their reasons, and they're a lot smarter than I am when it comes to picking a quarterback for football. But to go in with an unproven, obviously high expectation rookie and not really have anybody signed before camp, that was really rolling the dice.
Yeah. The one injury that we've seen that could kind of hurt them a little bit, back up their progress a little bit, is the guy they drafted in the first round, the offensive guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, pec injury. He's out day to day. Again, I don't know that that's going to set them back that much, but worth mentioning anyway.
Well, anytime you see a rookie first rounder, especially not getting the reps, football coaches always talk about reps. You need the repetitions. You need them whether it's with pads or not. It just seems to be that guys who sit out any amount of time who are young, they're always a little bit farther behind the 8 ball than anybody else. So will that crush them? Probably not, but is it something to keep an eye on? Absolutely.
So the green and white game, the Jet sort of preseason intra-squad scrimmage is this Saturday. The following Saturday, the 14th, is first preseason game, and they happen to take on their crosstown rivals, Big Blue, on that Saturday, the 14th, on a Saturday evening at 7:30.
Yes, not a road game for either team, but I believe it is a Jet quote unquote home game this time. But we are giving full disclosure here on our set today with our New York Jet and New York Giant jerseys. Giants, as we've mentioned before, if you haven't joined us, if this is your first time joining in, and we're happy you're here. Mike and I do go way back with Big Blue, or in this case, Big White and Red. That is the team that we have focused on for quite a bit. But it's an exciting time. We spoke about this back in the wintertime, how excited I was about Kenny Galladay coming in to be a big-time player for the New York Giants. And as I was in the airport yesterday, thumbing through my prospectus here on the Giants, yes, Kenny Galladay out with a hamstring injury, not one you want for a receiver.
2 to 3 weeks. So let me just go back to the Jets and finish up on them with one more question for you, Mike. That first preseason game, the one against the Giants, how much do you expect to see Zach Wilson in that game?
Very little. I think we will see him, much of the
series.
Yes,
two?
Series or two. We see, I think this is going to be the norm this year for most NFL teams. You're going to barely see your starting quarterback in any of these 3 preseason games. This year, we're only going 3 since they're adding, the 17th game to the season. And it's just there's such a great investment that you don't want to put these guys out there. However, a rookie quarterback, they have to play. They have to get their game reps. So will you see him out there? Absolutely. How long? Again, I think a safe bet is a couple of series. But then again, who knows? Every time you think you have the NFL or NFL coaches figured out, they always throw something at you. So maybe Robert Saleh says, you know what? Let's throw him out there for a quarter.
Okay, that would be good.
It'd be good for fans. For coaches, we know those guys are going to be, biting their fingernails down to a nub, and that's something that the preseason is it's more of a nuisance, I think, than anything else.
No, you make a good point with that. And the thing is that it's funny that all off-season long, we focus more on the Jets because they were the much more interesting off-season story. New coaching staff, new quarterback, number 2 overall pick. But now the training camp has begun, Mike. It seems like the Giants have been the much more interesting story. And one of the stories that came out a few days ago was that first day in pads, a huge mega intra-squad
Brawl.
Donnybrook
Yes.
that had Joe Judge absolutely apoplectic at his players. I mean, he made them run goal line to goal line, made them do push-ups, made them run goal line to goal line some more, and then released the rest of his coaching staff so he could go into a vitriolic, obscene tirade to his players and really laced it into them.
Well, why do you think he was so upset? Who was on the bottom of that pile?
Yeah, I know. Daniel Jones at the bottom of a dog pile. Not smart on the part of Jones, not smart on the part of other players. But what bothered me about that brawl was the fact that it seemed like, and again, there were no cameras rolling, but from what the insider reporters said was that Logan Ryan, who I really came to like and respect last year, was a real leader on that defense, was one of the catalysts of that fight.
It's unusual that early in camp, especially to have that, and with someone, as you're saying, who was a leader of the squad. Sometimes I think coaching staffs and someone like Joe Judge, he's in his second year, but he's finding his way here. Any opportunity they can find early on to really flex their muscles, they're going to do it. On the flip side, not to go back to the Jets, but interesting story in Newsday today about the coaching style of Robert Saleh and how he is really the polar opposite of Joe Judge. His demeanor is to stand back, to watch. He's more animated during games, but he's kind of really giving his coaches carte blanche, if you want to say, to be the leaders out there at this stage in camp. Joe Judge, completely different. Hey, I like a fired up guy. I'm happy about it. Having, especially as a Giant fan, having someone with a little life on the sidelines, I think you'll love it. Is it something to worry about? Could be, based on what you're saying, the type of players who kind of, precipitated this type of brawl. But early on, that kind of spirit, as long as no one's getting hurt, let's go after it.
Yeah. The other big thing or semi-big thing, it seemed like they brought in Kelvin Benjamin, who Gettleman had signed originally, drafted back in Carolina, right? Brought him in for extra depth at tight end. He reported overweight. They sent him home. They said, hey, come back when you're in shape. He came back. He was 7 pounds heavier than when he reported the first time. Judge got all over him. He got back all over Judge. Gettleman came scooting over to sort of diffuse things. And it just, again, it seemed like a bad look for the Giants, only to the regard that it just seemed as though Gettleman and Judge, at least for that particular time, were not on the same page.
Absolutely. And Benjamin's argument was that he was asked and expected to come in heavier. He's playing a different position. He's moving to tight end. So his thoughts were, he came in, they really didn't have much of a problem with him in minicamp, and they were expecting him to be heavier. So for Judge to get on him about his weight, normally, again, listen, my nickname, as we say, is the coach. I'm all about the coaches. But it seems like...
I got to stop calling you Mike. I don't want you to go Jason Garrett on me, Call me coach.
Nah, that's all right. But I'll tell you, it certainly seemed like Judge was looking for something to get rid of this guy. Something happened there, and it's embarrassing. It's unusual, and early in camp shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, and the thing is that I don't want to hear from Benjamin because honestly, if you got cut or whatever, and nobody wants to hear you after that.
Well, he's repairing his brand.
Yeah, but here's
whatever that brand might be.
Here's the thing. I'm interested in Gettleman and Judge being on the same page, and if they're not, that's an issue moving forward. But I want to ask you specifically about the running back situation, Mike. They let Wayne Gallman move on. They brought back Alfred Morris. They also have guys in camp like Devontae Booker and Corey Clement. What are we hearing about whether Saquon is going to start the season? And if he's not ready to start the season, are you going to be comfortable with the other guys they have in camp?
Am I going to be comfortable? No. But at the same token, I think that they're just being extra cautious with Saquon. Saquon himself is being extra cautious. It's probably where if this was 5-10 years ago, would he be in the lineup day one? I believe so. I don't think he's had any setbacks. You don't hear anything about that. But he is, listen, he's your franchise guy coming off a major, major injury. While the people in camp are not sexy names, I think they're at least guys who can carry the ball for a little bit. And hold down the fort maybe for, a couple of games going in. It's not going to get you excited. It doesn't get me excited. But is it manageable? Yes. You mentioned Wayne Gallman. I really liked him.
I did too.
I really did.
When you look at his stats,
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a 4-yard, a 4-yard a carry guy. I mean, who doesn't want that on their team?
Interesting that they let him go and bring in some other guys. I would have liked to have him in the backfield, at least, there, ready to participate. And he's been someone with the program, with the team. But I'm not overly worried about Saquon. I don't think it's going to be an issue if he misses, the beginning where it's going to really set them back. But in the NFL, where every game counts, every game is so important to the success of the team, once again, it can make you a little nervous.
All right, so it's time to transition once again our way back to baseball.
Right.
This time to talk some New York Mets.
And I know we got some Met fans out there.
Yeah, to help us do that is our crack Mets reporter, Chris Caputo. Hey, Chris, I hope you're not zooming.
Good evening, guys.
I hope you're not zooming us from the kitchen, Chris. Step away from the sharp objects.
The only thing hot around me is the sun as of right now.
All right, that's good. That's good. So, Mets last few days down in Miami, Chris. You dropped 3 out of 4. That after dropping 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati. You start a big weekend series against the Phillies this weekend. First of all, what's the Phillies score right now? They're playing against Washington as we speak. Can you give us an update?
Washington just got out of a jam. They're up 5-3 after 7. So I am hoping that for 2 more innings, Washington holds on. Then the Mets would be 1.5 up going into the weekend, meaning even if they lost 2 out of 3, they'd still be a half game up. And that's the optimistic person saying hopefully they don't get swept. It's been tough. But if you really look at it, the Mets have not been good all year except for the month of May. They have a losing record in every month except for May, and things have been going downhill. So something needs to change quick. You guys got the black Mets in the background. I got the black Mets in the background, and I don't know if it's because they just started wearing the black jerseys last Friday. But it's tough. And the Phillies, you got to look at all the moves the Phillies made. They went out and got themselves a starter and a reliever, and they, tried to bolster some of their bench. Look at the Braves. They went out and got 3 outfielders in one day. They got some guys coming off the injured list soon. And the Mets go out there and get Rich Hill and Javi Baez.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about the trading deadline, Chris. Baez obviously has paid some dividends already for you guys. Were you surprised and were you disappointed at all that the Mets didn't dive into the pitching market at the trade deadline?
Yes, and my big thing is Sandy Alderson seems to wait. I think they waited too long. They let too many guys go away. And then it was, let's see what we can try and pull up. And, 4 o'clock came and they were done. They announced 3:45, we're done. But you got to think about this. Look at their star.
Having just a momentary technical
right
issue.
now. Oh,
there we go.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me all right?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, you froze for just a sec, Chris.
No
Go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. Carrasco just came back. He can't even give you 5 innings. Rich Hill's, 40 years old. You got Tyler McGill thrown out of his mind. Stroman's been okay, but you got to think about this. Taijuan Walker has pitched 100 innings this year. Can you guys guess how many innings he threw combined in the past 3 years?
60.
You are.
I'm going to go less than 100. I'll put it to you that way.
67 innings in 3 years.
That's nice job. 67
Because
in the last 3 seasons.
Injury, COVID. So this guy is hitting a wall, whether you want to believe it or not. If you guys look back in April and May, his whiff rate, 28%. The last 2 months, 18%. He's not throwing the ball past anybody. So what would help the Mets? Have a 6-man rotation. Get an extra arm out there. They should have went and got somebody, and I'm very disappointed they didn't go after a guy. Now, I heard you guys talk a little bit before, the Yankees. Berrios might have been tough, but there were guys out there like Gibson that they could have gotten, and instead we're pulling up for the third time out of his grilling out of the backyard. We got to go get Jared Eichhoff again. It's terrible.
I want to ask you, Chris, with Baez in the fold, once Lindor gets back, how do you see that infield alignment shaking out for the Mets?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to put him at second base. Probably either J.D. Davis or McNeil will have to play third, maybe put one of them in the outfield. But,
it's to take out J.D. Davis's 320 out of that lineup right now, Chris.
Yeah, but today, striking out, bases loaded, nobody out. I mean, it's a 300 batting average, but if you look at it, guys, he hits less than 200 against lefties. He does all his jobs against righties. Don Smith's hitting 320 against lefties. So the Mets don't make sense. If you try to look at their numbers, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know who's going to be the odd man out. But just because Lindor comes back doesn't mean the Mets' problems are solved. I mean, let's look at Baez here. We go out and pick up a guy who his on-base OBP, on-base percentage plus slugging, with 2 strikes. Last year, 170. This year, 195. As soon as he gets 2 strikes, he's got no shot. Now, this is a guy who in 2018 was the runner-up for the MVP. Against fastballs, hit 318. This year, under 200. I mean, the guy, he's not the same player as he was. He's up there swinging and missing. In the past 2 years, his strikeout rate has gone from 26% to 37%. Well, 5 strikeouts today, guys.
Chris, if you hear the PR people, this is all going to be solved because he's best pals with Lindor.
Absolutely.
That's why you bring him in. Listen, you bring in Lindor's, anything he wants, bring him in.
And when Carrasco's on the mound, he's got somebody nice chirping in his ear, and everybody's happy because he's another Lindor.
Listen, I have no beef with Lindor. I was very happy they brought him in. I openly campaigned for it, but I got to tell you, I am so frustrated as a Met fan. Everything with their social media for the last 3 months. Anytime if Lindor, mowed the grass at Citi Field, he would have been canonized. I mean, everything this guy does, anytime he does anything positive, it's on their website and everything else, which I get. You got to market the team. But yeah, when Baez was brought in, he's pals with Lindor. This is great. Lindor is going to be happy. Baez is going to be happy. Everybody's going to be happy. The first thing that I thought, and Chris, if this entered your mind, say so, and if not, we can have an interesting conversation about it. When Baez was brought in, the first thought that came to my mind was not even so much this year, but next season. I think this signals the end of Jeff McNeil as a New York Met, because if you watch back to the beginning of the year, they're hitting him in weird spots. It just seemed like they were trying to do everything to tee the guy off. And do you see anything with that where it's, next year McNeil is a trade chip by bringing in a guy Baez who is a shortstop, second baseman? No,
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think Baez is a long-term solution. I think they were just trying to get through the year.
I don't. They're going to bring in Lindor's boy and then let him go? Absolutely not.
The only thing with if you're going to blame anybody right now, it's not McNeil. He's the only guy since the beginning of July. He's hitting about 330. He's playing with a lot of pain. He's fighting through it. I mean, is it the end of him? I hope not. I thought that J.D. Davis was going to be gone in the trading deadline, and I'll tell you, maybe Baez means J.D. Davis is gone.
Okay.
The guy I got to ask you about, Chris, and, listen, I've told Mike Cadone he's right about something at least a dozen times on the show, so here I've got to be a little bit of a jerk here. When we previewed the Mets in the offseason, Mike Cadone was looking for MVP numbers from Michael Conforto.
I sure was.
Conforto is around the 200 mark right now, very low power numbers. What do you think, Chris, has been the issue with Conforto this season?
Well, a lot of things. Let's start with number one, the contract.
Amen.
Mike and I, we've talked, and I'm not a Conforto believer. He's just been up and down so many times that I didn't want to give him the big contract, and he wanted his $100-something million. How can you, in any right mind right now, give this guy, I'll make up a number, 5 years, $125 million? It's just not happening. No other team's going to give it to him right now. The Mets will give him a qualifying offer, which he'll probably reject, and they'll get a draft pick out of it. But Conforto right now, going in, taking early BP, cage work, mental talks, all this stuff, still betting 199, and he's 6 for his last 50 with 2 extra base hits. I'm sorry, but some of these guys got to sit, and I don't care if Albert Almora is playing, every other day or whatever it is. Some of these guys just got to sit for a long period of time and just work it out a different way because, the Mets this past weekend, 17 games under 500, the Marlins. The Mets go 7 for 39 with runners in scoring position, leave 38 men on base in 35 innings. They're getting some hits, but just not with guys ready to score. It's tough. And Conforto's a big, big problem. And Mike, I think the big answer to you is he didn't get a contract. And right now he's trying to play for a contract and he's over swinging.
Wow.
I think you're 100% right. You know what? I thought that Conforto was not going to get a contract. And I thought that he was going to respond with MVP type numbers. I thought he was going to rise to the occasion. He got hurt, missed a considerable amount of time. And now I think, Chris, you're 1,000% correct. He is trying to play for a contract from behind with pressure. It's just blowing up in his face. What he's going to be able to do from here on out, I don't know. He's just got to get back to basics. But you mentioned it. Sit them down for a little while. Sit these guys down. You're in a pennant race. We're not worried about contracts or whatever else. We know that the business side of baseball can be deadly and looking forward, but we're not worried about his ego right now. Where could it be? Who the heck knows? But yeah, let's get somebody in there that can, at least hit the ball.
And let's talk for a second real quick. This year and even last year, it's different when the game's over. These guys don't sit there and have 19 reporters at their locker room. Every once in a while, they do something good or bad, and they have to sit in front of a Zoom session and answer some PR guy. Now, they don't have to do that every day, and that's kind of lucky, but they don't get to vent it out. And today, Conforto sat there, and I'll tell you, he said all the right things like, hey, we are where we are at the end of this weekend when we play the Phillies, but you can see the frustration on his face. And I think it's starting to spill over into the other guys. You need a big weekend, kind of like the Mets had 4 or 5 years ago against the Nationals, where everything hit on all cylinders after 4.5.
Yeah, you froze up for just a second there, Chris. But let me ask you, after this weekend series with Philly, who's been nipping at your heels.
I'm going Saturday, by the way.
Oh, great. Have fun. You have Washington, who's basically thrown up the white flag. But then after that, Chris, you get 13 in a row against the Dodgers and the Giants, 2 of the better teams in baseball this year. What are you expecting out of that stretch from the Mets? Can they stay on top of this, let's be honest, kind of weak National League East?
And I see Nicole's going Saturday, too. We got a nice matchup with McGill. The NL East, look at the projections right now. The Mets are in first place, but they're only like a 25% or less chance to make the playoffs because everybody sees it kind of going downhill. Now, yes, the Mets have 13 games with the NL West, and it's going to be tough. But I always think the bigger games are you got the Phillies and the Nats, and then later on playing again the Marlins. The games in the division are going to matter more. So if the Mets go, 5-8 versus the Giants and the Dodgers, I'm not so worried about it. What I am worried about is getting back on them not falling apart again.
And one more thing I wanted to get to with you, Chris. We heard a lot over the last week or so, and this is kind of an off-the-field kind of thing, about the whole situation with Kumar Rocker. What was your take on the way that whole thing shook out?
Again, with Sandy, they had all these guys out there looking, and these scouts are all saying this is the guy. I understand that you don't have access to all of these guys' medical records. However, there were people that said he took an MRI after the season was over and everything was good. And you could have seen some of those things. There's a reason why a guy drops from, let's say, the second or third overall pick to the 11th pick. And it's either A, money, or B, there's something wrong with the guy. Now, they're not saying the guy needs Tommy John surgery, but he definitely is damaged goods. And if it was over $1 million, I think the Mets would have tried to Met, even though it's Scott Boras. But it does not look good for the Mets. This happens all the time with guys. Hey, we're going to sign this guy. Now, do they get a pick next year at the 11 pick for not signing this guy? Sure. But this is my idea with Sandy. Wait until the last minute. You heard people saying he was working out with the Mets down in Florida a week or two before that. But, the Yankees wouldn't let this go. So, Trez, if it was you guys and you picked up Rocker, you guys would have signed him. And even if he was bad, you would have flown by the seat of your pants. But this is a bad look for the Mets. You were looking at a guy who's 21, 22 years old. He probably could have pitched in the majors next year.
We love Nicole's comment, too. Nicole's a former coworker of mine. Her husband is a Philly fan. They live down in that area. But the kids and Nicole, they're repping the Mets. And you know what? Just one last thing I wanted to mention, Chris, and to Trez, you as well. This is something – I've been a Met fan my entire life, but I always go back to this. The Mets, like you said, Chris, the PR, there's always some kind of PR nightmare or something. What are we excited about as Mets fans right now? Or what are we supposed to be excited? Again, as you mentioned, the black jersey, the black whatever, right? We got to get excited about that. We're not the Yankees. They just, they pull out the pinstripes, get guys they need, and just win games. The Mets, it's always got, Mr. Met and Mrs. Met. They're running the bases, all that stuff. Look, it's part of my heritage, and for me to talk badly about that, I'm not. But it's just so darn frustrating that we can't be talking right now about some stud starting pitcher that we brought in at the trading deadline instead of this kind of nonsense.
Absolutely, because you got a guy in DeGrom we didn't even talk about him tonight. He may not pitch the rest of the year. He's got a 1.08 ERA, cannot even qualify for the Cy Young. Forget about becoming an MVP. The Mets have used 16 different starters this year, 35 different pitchers. We don't know who's going to walk out there next week. But yeah, it's tough. And you know what? I don't even care if they go out and get a guy who's been around for a long period of time. Get another outfielder. Go out and get a guy who's serviceable, who can hit the ball out of the park. Fine. Now, here's what I'm hoping. The Marlins park, the ball doesn't carry that well. You go to Philly, I'm hoping we get a couple of homers, get a couple of guys on track, and maybe things start to pick up again. But you're right, Mike. We had the ability to go out there and get somebody big, both in the field and on the mound, and they didn't either. And here's the biggest problem. You got guys like Aaron Loop with a 1.25 ERA. They can't do this for another 55 games. Okay. No. In the last 10 games, only one Met starter has gone 6 innings. Only one. You can't keep killing your bullpen.
One thing I have noticed, Coach Mike, we get a lot more female commenters when Chris Caputo is on. So, Chris, thanks for bringing the ladies in.
Well, wait a minute. Nicole came because of me, I believe.
That's him, Mike.
No. Oh. They love Chris Caputo. That's why they're here. So, Chris, thank you very much for bringing the ladies. Ladies, keep on commenting us. We love to have you. And, Chris, we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Have fun this weekend, okay?
All right, guys, take it easy.
Chris, be careful down there in Philly. We know it can be a dangerous spot as a Met fan. I've seen it firsthand. I know you're a smart guy, though. Just bring me back some wins. Either that or a cheesesteak, one or the other, all right?
Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be talking positive about all the teams.
Thanks, brother. We appreciate it. Oh, wait. Nicole checking in. Whoa. My allegiance is with Mike. Thank you very much.
There you go.
I thought maybe that.
Tan? Oh, baby.
Now you know why.
I love it. I'll talk to you soon, Chris.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, Mike. So we got about 12 minutes left to get to the Knicks, the Nets, the Islanders. Let's dive in. Knicks, Julius Randle back in the fold. 4 years, $117 million.
A bargain.
A bargain,
that
really?
Is a bargain.
No, honestly, he really is. Salary cap friendly deal. Alec Burks back for 3 years. Nerlens Noel, one of your favorites, back for 3 years. Derrick Rose back for 3 years.
The next time Nerlens Noel scores 10 points in the end, that'll be the first time. But that's not why he's there. But yeah, a lot of old friends coming back. Derrick Rose, it seems like we've been talking about Derrick Rose since our first show.
It's like the Derrick Rose
right?
show.
It's unbelievable. I mean, he should be giving us a cut of his royalties. Yeah, he's back. 3 years, $43 million. You know, and he's towards the end of his career, but you think to yourself, 3 years, $43 million. That's actually kind of a bargain in today's, NBA salary cap world as well. So bringing him, and I guess they knew that Big Kemba was coming on board because, Derrick Rose could not handle all those minutes. He can play some too. Kemba, I'm excited about him, but when it comes to Kemba Walker, it's about one thing: injuries.
Kemba Walker, 2 years, about $10 million a year from what I'm understanding.
Yep.
Evan Fournier now in the fold, 4 years, up to, whatever that means, up to $78 million. Excite you?
It does. It does. Does it get me, drooling? But he's a piece they need. Definitely. We're going to get to the whole thing here with the amount of point guards that are on this roster in just a second. So you got to think maybe there's another trade in the works. But Evan Fournier, professional player, guy who's going to come in and do what you need. They brought Taj Gibson back, again. So you're talking about Robinson, Noel, Gibson, those three guys. But I love him. Fournier, professional player, is in the Olympics right now, and he's successful.
Well, let's do the math. Derrick Rose, quickly they're not going to let walk, and Kemba Walker is now in the fold. Adios, Alfred Payton.
Yeah, I think he was doomed anyway. I mean, he's a guy who, towards the end of last year, ran out of gas, was a defensive player. Coach Tom Thibodeau loves defense, and that's something else. But he would have to admit what they were lacking last year was scoring in the playoffs.
Let's get to the Nets really quickly for a couple minutes, Mike. They let Jeff Green walk, which I know doesn't sit well with you. You're
really
a Jeff Green fan.
I liked
so
him. We both liked him a lot in the playoffs last year. Here's a guy who shows up every day. He was what he was: defense, rebounding, professional. Do you get that replaced with some other players? I don't know if they're all worried about that necessarily, because when you put the big three out there, as long as they're healthy and going, do you need something like that? Probably not. But, I liked him quite a bit.
All right. Let Jeff Green walk, brought back Blake Griffin, brought back Bruce Brown.
Yes.
So Green means go, Brown means stay. Signed Patty Mills.
I like that. I like Patty Mills. Here's a guy in Mills, 32 years old, been around a little bit, but this is a guy that can hit threes. He can hit the 3-point shot. And what happened?
Which, as we saw last year.
Joe Harris, you know what? As the only 3-point. Yeah, unfortunately, the guy really tanked it there at the end. You have a secondary shooter right here in Patty Mills. It's going to help Joe Harris. And also, Mills moves on from a San Antonio Spurs spot where he was highly regarded. Now, what's he doing? He's chasing the rings again. But he was the last holdover from the Spurs dynasty, so to speak. Greg Popovich said this week, great move for him. And you got to give Popovich credit for, allowing those kind of thoughts at least to come out of his mouth.
Yeah, Patty Mills, on the Nets, what are you going to play? You're going to play 10 minutes a game, maybe 15?
He's going to play a little bit more. But You know what? When you're missing, when this big three, when one guy's taking a night, all right? Listen, is he going to find minutes? I'll just say that. Will he find more minutes? Come on, he's going to find more minutes than 10 minutes.
Okay.
He's going to find them someplace.
All right. So this is Mike Cadone hates Harden and he hates Kyrie. He doesn't want to say that.
No, I hate Kyrie.
Oh, he does want to say that.
I will. Hate is a strong word. I strongly dislike Kyrie Irving because I think the man should have laced up his shoes and gotten on the court, at least for Game 7. And he does Kyrie things. Kyrie Irving does Kyrie things.
The situation with the Nets I found interesting, and I mentioned this to you off the air, which I usually don't, was the D'Antoni situation.
Yeah.
Mike D'Antoni, 70 years of age. And again, who is Mike Cadone or Mike Trez to tell somebody of a certain age that they can't go out and accept a new challenge? We're trying to do this, folks. So I mean, the fact that you want to be a head coach and coach guys that are literally half a century younger than you. But here was the thing about it I thought was strange and bothered me, Mike. You know, you go and you hand somebody your resume, right? Most recent at the top. So here's the most recent, 20 to 21 season. Well, I was assistant coach number 1 on a team with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. And guess what? We got bounced out in the second round. You want that at the top of your resume? I don't want it on mine.
I don't really think he's worried about his resume, though, and I'll only because he's been around for quite some time. Mike D'Antoni is a systems guy. All right, he's a systems guy. That is his thing. The run it up, shoot, and whatever else. I'm going to take it just one step a little bit deeper, Mike, because that's what I do with coaches. I think Mike D'Antoni was brought in for 1 year to mentor Steve Nash. I think that was the agreement. I think he was really going to think he was finding another head coaching job someplace else. And if they bring him back for another year where he's running huddles at times, running practices, it takes away even a little bit more of Steve Nash's cachet as the head coach. I think they said, Mike, come in for a year, give him all you can, and then you're going to be moving on to something else. And I don't think he wanted to stay any more than 1 year.
But you and I talked about it, Mike, when we put a wrap on the Nets season, right?
Yes.
The fact that where was Mike D'Antoni sort of mentoring Steve Nash in that game 7 when Blake Griffin is playing 47 minutes? He can't guard Giannis. Nick Claxton is stapled to the bench. Landry Shamet is stapled to the bench. How about getting in his ear at halftime and saying, hey, coach, can we find a few minutes, a couple trips up and down the floor for these two guys?
Okay, I'm not going to defend D'Antoni again, but maybe he did, and that's why he left.
Okay.
It's possible because you know what?
Good point.
I'm sure there is no way. I mean, Stevie Wonder would have been able to see that something needed to change in that game. And I'm sure that he went, and they do. They talk at halftime. I've been an assistant in other places. I've been in that first assistant's chair where I've gone up. And I'm going to tell you right now, the only time in my coaching career where I was in someone's ear and they never listened, the next year I said adios. And it wasn't an ego thing. It's not an ego thing. It might be in the NBA, whatever else. It's just a matter of, can you be effective in that spot? And if your head coach is not going to listen to you, even your ego might say one thing, but it's going to say, you know what? It's time for you to go someplace else and find that out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So let's transition once again. We got just a few minutes left, Mike, and I know we want to squeeze in some stuff on the Islanders because they've had an interesting offseason. We talked about whether they would lose Jordan Eberle in the expansion draft. They did. Now I can kind of be a little bit more forward about the fact that Jordan Eberle was not a favorite of mine. I thought that on a line with Matt Barzal, there are times that the other team is going to take away the scoring of Matt Barzal. But if he's giving you a dish right and setting you up perfectly, you have to put that home. And I just saw Jordan Eberle, not just in the playoffs, but even in the regular season, miss a lot of shots last year I thought he should have made. You
ever see guys get traded or whatever else, and they go to their new team and they say the right things, that they're excited, and because they have to. When Jordan Eberle was drafted off of the Islanders by the Seattle Kraken, I have never seen anybody so happy to be in a new situation. I was sitting there watching. He was there, and I know him, but man, he seemed thrilled to be. I don't know why.
Well, good luck trying to find another Matt Barzal to be on the line. But I'm telling you, yeah, I mean, reading body language, man, he seemed to be psyched to be on that team. And Barzal, exactly. When we were talking earlier in the year, about trades and whatever else, and that the Islanders, Anders Lee was hurt and they needed another legit scorer. It always seems like they need someone to put the puck in the net because you can take away Barzal. And Eberle, now you take him out. Where are we going to find our scoring? So I can understand why you were frustrated with him, but man, he seemed pretty psyched to be going. Wow, that's interesting. Nick Leddy is another guy that Islander fans have come to be very fond of over the past several years. Really, really good player. Traded him to Detroit. Got back Richard Panik, not to be confused with Joe Panik, but I don't know. Is that a move that sends you into a panic? How do you feel about that? Panic, no. Excitement, no. But I mean, salary cap, a little bit of a salary cap issue right there with Leddy as well. I think,
Lou Lamoriello, you got to trust him. I was going to say this before a little bit about the difference between, a Sandy Alderson waiting and a Lou Lamoriello waiting. It's almost like they kind of have that reputation. That's where it ends. Lou Lamoriello, questioning him, I won't do it because the guy has come to the Islanders and made them a top 4 team. But that was more about salary cap issues.
All right. And in terms of salary, an arbitration hearing on the 11th, that's going to affect that top defensive pairing of Pulock and Pelech. Adam Pelech, his hearing is on August 11th. What do you expect the outcome to be? Well,
to allow those players to get to arbitration, and you got to think of something. In a New York Islanders perfect world, do the Isles win both of those cases? I think it's unlikely. I'd see, who's going to win, who's not. I think one of them will win, one of them will not. But I don't think they're so far off that it's going to be any kind of ill will between the team. You need those guys back, and you need them to produce.
Wow, I can't believe we squeezed in Mets, Jets, Islanders, Yankees, Giants, all in an hour 5. But Michael Anthony, I got to tell you, we are good. You're the greatest, Michael.
The people asked for it and they got it.
They got it.
And after a long break, we're back and we hit every little nook and cranny of the sports that you could say.
We hit all spots. So, folks, we are here at the Format Studio in beautiful downtown Deer Park. We're part of the J12 family of podcasts, now on Apple Podcasts, now on Spotify. Continue to tune in, share us, like us, comment us. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Our theme music, Spot On, is by Scott Daly. Our logo art is by Valerie Hanatic, the Jets fanatic. We got to get Valerie on, by the way, to talk some Jets. Our voiceover guy is the amazing Archie Snowden. Our engineer is the incomparable Michael Anthony. Thanks, Chris Caputo, for coming on. Thank you, Declan Krogman, for coming on. For everybody here at Spot On Sports, including my partner, the coach, Mike Cadone, this is Mike Trez saying so long. We'll see you next time on Spot On Sports.